Should the United States pursue a foreign policy of intervention or isolation? Now, in order to prepare your argument, the first thing you need to be clear on is what each means. And so, before I get into those two terms, I want to address what national interests are. And so, national interests involve a country's goals and risks, whether economic, military, cultural, you name it. There are things that benefit a country, such as certain relations or a presence in a certain region of the world where they draw resources from or have lots of trade. There's lots of uh, facets to national interest. Now, intervention, in its simplest term, is getting involved in international conflicts. Now, the key word there is international. And um, if I drop down here to non intervention, and so it's a policy where a nation seeks to avoid alliances with other nations. All right, so that's the key part, alliances with other nations. So if we get back up here to intervention, getting involved in international conflicts, well, they're maybe getting involved in those international conflicts not necessarily because the United States has been attacked, but maybe one of their allies has been attacked. And so intervention is when the US is getting involved not solely for their own benefit, but for the benefit of other countries. Isolation is avoiding involvement in foreign conflicts. So, for example, if um, you look at what's going on in Syria right now, they've been involved in a lengthy civil war. The U.S. has been involved. So, are they one of the primary players in that civil war? Well, no, because it's a civil war. A civil war means a war within a country. So, by the U.S. getting involved, this would be an example of intervention. It it doesn't directly affect them. Now they want a certain outcome, and again, forget about what the outcome is. The intervention is simply they're getting involved in things that don't directly affect them. And so isolation is the opposite. So if the US had just ignored what's going on in Syria and simply said, well, that's a Syrian issue and they need to handle it on their own, that would be an example of isolation. And so if we get back down to the non intervention, and so usually one of the, the key details of non intervention is even if a country goes to war, they're doing it because they were attacked and their territory was attacked. So they're protecting their own people, not protecting others. And so when we get down to uh, U.S. conflicts, we've studied a few of these already, and so the U.S. here they avoided involvement in a war between two other countries, and so that would be an example of isolation. And then the U.S. went to war with other countries, and so we see a long list here. And now, the one question, or one of the big questions you have to address is even when the US got into war, was this an example of isolation or intervention? If they went to war to help somebody else, well, that would be intervention. If they went to war because they were attacked, they could still maintain isolation because they're only protecting, um, it's only self defense. Even if they declare war, that's irrelevant. So when you look at this question, don't assume just because they went to war that it was intervention. You have to look at the different players involved, the different countries involved, what prompted the United States to get involved, and the opposite. When they didn't get involved, what was the result? And so this is not as simple as it may sound. Oh, we should always be peaceful. No, even when you go to war, it can still pursue a policy of isolation because it's not for another country's benefit. You're not going to war because, like, for example, again, if North Korea and South Korea, for whatever reason, again, went to war and the United States fought on South Korea's side, well, was the U.S. attack? If 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 not, and they joined on the side of South Korea, then this would abandon isolationism and be intervention. All right, so your main issue here is deciding, which of these two policies is more beneficial for the United States to pursue.